At my granddaughter's first birthday party, my daughter-in-law stood up in front of everyone, held up a manila envelope and said, "This is just some old paperwork Margaret left behind. We should probably just throw it out. It's not like it's worth anything." She laughed. Her mother laughed. Half the room laughed the way people laugh when they don't know what else to do. I didn't laugh. I didn't cry. I picked up my purse, walked to the gift table, took the envelope out of her hand very gently and said, "I'll take care of that, dear." Then I drove home, sat down at my kitchen table and called my lawyer. That envelope held the trust fund my daughter Margaret left for her niece. $73,000, the last thing my child ever did for the family she loved. And my daughter-in-law had just tried to wave it away in front of 40 people like it was a grocery receipt. Here's what happened when the whole family finally found out what was in that envelope. And here's what I did to make sure no one could ever touch it again. Welcome back to Only Grandma Stories, where the document they call worthless is usually the only thing in the room that was built with someone's whole heart. Stay with me to the end. Drop a comment and be sure to subscribe. My name is Beverly Caldwell. I'm 66 years old. And for 35 years, I worked as a paralegal for a family law firm in Dayton, Ohio. I know how documents work. I know how trusts work. I know how people behave when money is on the table and they think no one educated is watching. I have sat in more conference rooms than I can count and watched people transform the moment an inheritance enters the conversation. Something animal happens behind their eyes. I have seen it enough times that I recognize it immediately. I recognized it the afternoon of Lily's first birthday party, when I watched my daughter-in-law Courtney hold up that envelope and decide, in real time, what it was worth and who it belonged to. She had no idea who she was performing for. Let me tell you about Margaret first, because none of this makes any sense without her. Margaret was my daughter, my only daughter, my younger child by 4 years, born on a Wednesday in February during a snowstorm, which her father Gerald said was appropriate because she came into the world making everything complicated and beautiful at the same time. She had Gerald's dark eyes and my stubbornness, and a laugh that could fill a parking garage. She became a software engineer, one of the best at her company, the kind of person other engineers brought their hardest problems to. She bought her own condo at 29. She had a group of friends who would have walked through fire for her. She had plans. She had so many plans. Margaret was diagnosed with ovarian cancer at 31. She died 17 months later, 2 weeks before her 33rd birthday. I am not going to describe those 17 months in detail because some things belong only to the people who lived them. What I will tell you is that my daughter faced it the way she faced everything, with her chin up and her mind working, and her heart pointed toward the people she loved. She didn't spend those months in self-pity. She spent them finishing things, calling people she needed to call, writing things down, putting her house in order with the same precision and care she brought to everything. One of the things she finished was her will, and in her will she established a trust. Margaret never married. She didn't have children, but she adored her brother's family. She adored my son Donovan fiercely, the way younger siblings sometimes love older ones, with a mix of exasperation and devotion. And when Donovan and Courtney announced they were expecting a baby girl, Margaret, from her hospital bed, had wept with a happiness so pure it hurt to look at. She never got to meet Lily. Lily was born 4 months after we buried her aunt, but Margaret had been ready for her. The trust she established was specific and locked. $73,000, accumulated over years of careful saving and smart investing, structured to go to her niece for education and her start in life. Not to Donovan, not to Courtney. To the child, administered by me as trustee, the way Margaret had asked, because she knew. I understood documents, and because she trusted me with the thing she loved most, her niece's future. I want you to understand something about that money. Margaret earned every dollar of it at a keyboard at 2 a.m. and in meetings where she was the only woman in the room. And in years of choosing the sensible thing over the easy thing, she didn't accumulate it by accident. She built it the way she built everything. On purpose, one careful decision at a time, and in the last months of her life, when she could have spent it on anything, she pointed it at a baby who hadn't been born yet, because she wanted Lily to have something solid under her feet someday. Something that said your aunt was here and she thought about you before you existed and she wanted you to have a head start nobody could take away. The envelope I carried to Lily's birthday party contained the original trust documents, a notarized letter from Margaret's attorney, and a handwritten note from Margaret to Lily to be read when she turned 18. I had kept those documents in my home safe for a year, waiting for the right moment to present them properly to Donovan, so he could understand the full weight of what his sister had left. I had not expected Courtney to find the envelope first. I should tell you about Courtney, because I don't want her to be a cartoon either. She is more than the worst moment I am about to describe, and the more is what makes it sad. Courtney grew up in a family that talked about money constantly and had very little of it. Her father left when she was 9. Her mother remarried twice, and neither time well. Courtney put herself through community, college, working double shifts, and she has a fierceness about financial security that I understand and even respect. She is not lazy. She is not stupid. She worked for what she has, but somewhere in the working, and the fighting and the watching money disappear from her family's hands. Courtney developed a relationship with other people's finances that I can only describe as predatory in the most unconscious way. She doesn't think of it as taking. She thinks of it as making sure. Making sure there's enough, making sure her family is protected, making sure the resources go where they'll do the most good, which in her mind almost always means through her hands first. When Donovan and Courtney married 6 years ago, I watched her look at my family the way a new manager looks at a department she's just inherited, assessing, inventorying, deciding what was useful and what could be reorganized. She has always been perfectly pleasant to me on the surface. We have had nice enough Christmases. She brings good food to family dinners. She remembered my birthday 2 years in a row, but I noticed the way she talked about Margaret's condo after Margaret died. Whether it had been sold yet, what it had gone for. I noticed the way she asked Donovan once, thinking I couldn't hear, whether Margaret had left anything to him directly. I noticed the careful, casual questions about the trust, never quite direct, always wrapped in something that sounded like innocent curiosity. I noticed. I am a paralegal of 35 years. Noticing is what I do. Donovan is my son, and this is the part that aches most to write. Not Courtney, him. Donovan is a good man. He was a wonderful brother. He loved Margaret with everything he had, and her death broke something in him that I am not sure has ever fully healed. He keeps a photo of her on his desk. He named their dog Maggie, which I suspect Courtney doesn't know is not a coincidence. He is kind and funny and a devoted father, and I love him without reservation. But Donovan has always managed his grief by not looking at it directly. He deals with painful things by setting them slightly to the side, letting the people around him handle the hard parts while he focuses on being steady and pleasant and fine. When Margaret was sick, he was at every appointment, but Courtney managed the logistics. When Margaret died, he fell apart privately and let me and his aunt handle the arrangements. When Courtney makes decisions he's uneasy with, he tells himself she means well and moves on. He has spent 6 years not looking directly at certain things about his wife, the way she speaks about money, the questions she asks, the reorganizing. He loves her. It is easier to love her without looking at those parts. I want you to hold that, because it matters for what happened at the party, and what happened after. Lily's first birthday was at Courtney's parents' house, her mother, Sandra's. Sandra is a version of Courtney, with 30 more years of hard edges and a particular talent for making generosity feel like an accusation. The party was lovely on the surface. Pink balloons and a smash cake and grandparents and neighbors, and Lily in a tutu being passed around like the happiest trophy in Ohio. I had brought the envelope. I had planned to give it to Donovan privately after the party, to sit down with him and walk him through the documents the way I would have with any client carefully, with enough time to ask questions. I wanted him to understand fully what his sister had done, what she had built for his daughter, before he shared it with Courtney. I had left my purse in the back bedroom with the other coats and bags. The envelope was inside it. I do not know how Courtney found it. I think she went looking, because I think, on some level, she had always known something was coming, and she had decided she wanted to see it first. I have no proof of that. I only know that halfway through the gift opening, Courtney appeared from the hallway holding my envelope, the seal broken, the documents visibly handled. She had read them. She stood in front of 40 people, my family, her family, neighbors, friends, and she held up those papers and she smiled, and she said the words I will hear for the rest of my life. This is just some old paperwork Margaret left behind. We should probably just throw it out. It's not like it's worth anything. She laughed. And the room, not knowing, not understanding, laughed with her. I want you to understand what she was doing, because it was not stupid and it was not careless. It was calculated. She had read those documents. She knew exactly what was in them. She knew the trust was locked, that she and Donovan couldn't touch it, that it was administered by me. She knew that if the room's first impression of those documents was worthless old paperwork, it would be harder for the truth to land with full weight later. She was setting a narrative. She was doing it in public, with witnesses, before I could speak. In 35 years of family law, I have watched people do this in conference rooms with lawyers present. Courtney was doing it at a child's birthday party in front of a smash cake. I stood up. I walked to her. I took the envelope from her hand with the same calm I have used in 100 difficult rooms. I said, "I'll take care of that, dear." My voice did not shake. I did not explain. I did not give her the scene she had perhaps expected. The flustered old woman, the confusion, the moment of weakness she could use. I put the envelope in my purse. I said goodbye to Lily. I kissed my son on the cheek. I drove home. In the car I let myself feel it, all of it. The violation of Margaret's privacy, those documents handled by hands that had already decided they were inconvenient. The laugh, the room laughing. My son standing by the wall with his cup of punch and his careful, pleasant, fine expression, not stopping it, not understanding what he was watching, choosing easier the way he always chooses easier. I let myself feel it for exactly the length of the drive home. Then I pulled into my garage and I called Walter. Walter Ostrowski has been my attorney and my friend for 22 years. He was at Margaret's bedside the day she signed the trust documents. He was at her funeral. He knows this family and he knows this trust the way a doctor knows a patient's chart, every detail, every contingency, every protection that was built in. I told him what had happened. All of it. The broken seal, the documents handled, the performance in front of 40 people, the laugh. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Beverly, come in Monday. We have some things to discuss about your role as trustee and about what options we have." That Monday changed everything. What Walter explained to me over 2 hours in his office, with Margaret's trust documents spread on the table between us, was this. As the sole trustee, I had not only the right, but arguably the responsibility, to review whether the trust's administrative structure was still serving its purpose optimally. Margaret had set it up with good intentions and a basic structure. But there were additional protections available, additional locks that could be put in place, particularly given that the beneficiary was a minor and there was now an indication that people adjacent to her might not have her best interests as their first priority. We could petition the court to add an independent co-trustee, a bank or trust company, so that no single person, including me, had unilateral control. We could add specific language restricting any attempts to redirect, dissolve, or challenge the trust until Lily reached majority. We could make it, as Walter put it, airtight in a way that Margaret's original documents, drafted quickly in a hospital room, were not quite. We spent a week building the new structure. It was the most important legal work I have done since I stopped being a paralegal. Sitting on the other side of the desk, using 35 years of knowledge for my own family instead of clients. When it was done, that trust was locked the way a bank vault is locked. Courtney could not touch it. Donovan could not redirect it. I could not personally dissolve it even if I wanted to. It existed for one purpose. For Lily, for her education, for her start, and it would wait there patiently until she was old enough to receive it, the way Margaret had intended. Then I did the other thing, the thing that was harder than any document. I called my son. I told him everything, not through Walter's measured legal language, but in my own words, at my own kitchen table, the way a mother talks to a son when the time for being careful about his feelings has passed. I told him about the broken seal. I told him what those documents contained, and what Margaret had built for his daughter over years of quiet, careful work. I told him what his wife had said, and how she had said it, and what it meant that she had said it in front of 40 people before I could speak. I told him about the new structure Walter and I had built, and why. And I told him the thing I had needed to say for 6 years, the thing I had been carrying since the careful questions about the condo, since the moment I watched him look away from things he needed to look at. Your sister built something for your daughter, Donovan. She did it from a hospital bed. She did it thinking about a baby who hadn't been born yet. She did it because she loved your family more than she loved her own comfort, more than she loved what that money could have done for her in the time she had left. And the first time that gift entered a room, your wife tried to make it disappear before anyone could understand what it was. And you were standing right there and you said nothing. You said nothing the way you have said nothing for 6 years. I am not angry at you. I am your mother and I love you and I am not angry. But you need to hear this the way Margaret would have said it. Clearly and without the soft edges. You have been choosing easier your whole life. It is going to cost you your daughter's respect if you don't stop. The line was very quiet. Then Donovan said, I didn't know what was in the envelope. I know, I said. But I knew she was doing something. I could see it. I didn't know what, but I could see she was doing something and I told myself she meant well. He stopped. I always tell myself that. Yes, I said, you do. He was quiet for a long time. When he spoke again, his voice was different. Heavier, the voice of a man, putting down something he has carried at arm's length for 2, long and finally feeling the weight of it. What do I do, Mom? I told him what I wanted. The same thing I had wanted from the beginning. The whole family, one room. And I would present Margaret's gift properly, the way it deserved to be presented, the way it would have been presented at that birthday party, if a seal hadn't been broken in a back bedroom. Margaret had written Lily a letter. A real one, handwritten, 2 pages, sealed. She had given it to me the week before. She died with instructions that it be read, aloud to Lily's family on a significant occasion, so that a little girl who would grow up, with a photograph and a story, instead of an aunt would know, in her aunt's own words, that she had been loved before she took her first breath. That letter had been in the envelope. Those pages had been handled by hands that called them worthless. I was going to read that letter in front of everyone, and I was going to do it after I showed them exactly what else had been in that envelope and exactly what it meant. Donovan arranged the gathering. A Sunday dinner at my house, the way we used to do when the children were young, the way we had done the winter. Margaret was sick when she could still come to the table. His family, Sandra, Courtney's 2 sisters who had been at the party, my sister Ruth who had loved Margaret like a second daughter. He told Courtney only that his mother wanted to present Margaret's gift to Lily properly. He told her in a tone I had never heard from my son before, the tone of a man who has stopped pre-apologizing for what he's about to say. She came. She sat across the table from me with careful eyes and a pleasant expression, and I think she knew on some level that the ground had shifted under her while she wasn't watching. We ate first. I made pot roast because Gerald always said you cannot have a hard conversation on an empty stomach, and even though Gerald has been gone 8 years, I still listen to him about some things. We talked about Lily, who sat in her high chair destroying a dinner roll with magnificent focus. We talked about the weather and Ruth's garden and Donovan's work. Then I cleared the plates, and I put Margaret's envelope on the table. I want to present Margaret's gift to Lily properly, I said, the way it was meant to be presented. I think most of you know some of what happened at the birthday party. I want to make sure everyone understands all of it. I took the documents out of the envelope one at a time, and I laid them on the table the way Walter had taught me to present documents, calmly with space between each one, so each item could be seen and understood before the next one arrived. These, I said, are the trust documents Margaret executed 7 weeks before she died. She worked with her attorney to establish a trust for Lily, specifically for her education and her start in life. Margaret saved this money over 10 years. She invested it carefully. She chose it over a nicer apartment, over vacations, over a dozen things she could have had. She pointed it at her niece because she wanted Lily to have something solid that no circumstance could take away. I smoothed the first document. The trust contains $73,000. It is locked until Lily turns 18. It cannot be redirected, dissolved, borrowed against, or accessed by her parents or by me. It exists for one person, for the little girl at the end of this table eating that dinner roll. Sandra's mouth had opened. Courtney had gone very still. Donovan was looking at the documents with his jaw tight and his eyes bright, and I could see him putting together the thing he had been not looking at for a year. The questions about the condo, the carefully casual inventory, the broken seal, the performance at the party. I watched the understanding land on him the way a wave lands, slow and then all at once. I looked at Courtney. I kept my voice exactly as level as I have kept it in every difficult room I have ever sat in. You found these documents before the party, I said. You read them. You knew what they were and what they contained. And you stood up in front of 40 people and called them worthless old paperwork and suggested they be thrown away. I am not here to shame you, but I need everyone at this table to understand clearly what happened and why, so that there is no version of events that travels through this family where that afternoon is remembered as a misunderstanding or an innocent mistake. It was not a misunderstanding. Courtney looked at me and then away and then back. I watched her find the angle. I have watched people find the angle for 35 years. I have seen it so many times I know it before they start talking. I didn't understand what they were, she said. I just saw some papers and I didn't know they were important. I was just making a joke. I'm sorry if it came across wrong. I didn't mean any harm. You read them, I said. I am not asking you to confirm that. I am telling you. The documents were handled, the seal was broken, and the contents were familiar. Enough to you that you knew exactly how to describe them to minimize their importance in front of witnesses. Before I could speak. I have worked in legal offices for 35 years, Courtney. I know what a prepared statement looks like. What you said at that party was a prepared statement. The room was very quiet. I'm not trying to make you a villain, I continued. I think I understand why you did it. I think you grew up watching money disappear and you have spent your entire adult life trying to make sure it doesn't disappear for your family. And when you found those documents, you saw a resource that was locked away from you and your instinct was to neutralize it before it became a problem. I understand that instinct. I even have some sympathy for it. But Margaret saved that money with her whole heart for her niece. And what you did in that back bedroom, and what you did in front of those 40 people, was a betrayal of a woman who is not here to speak for herself. And I will not let it stand without naming it clearly. Sandra started to say something, the way she always starts to say something, with that particular energy of a woman who has spent decades defending the indefensible, by making the other person feel unreasonable. And I turned to her before she got the first word out. Sandra. I said it the way Walter uses a name in a deposition, not unkindly, but with a completeness that closes the door. I think you should let your daughter handle this herself. Sandra sat back. She sat back the way people sit back when they realize the room is not going to go the way they arranged it. Donovan had been very quiet. My son, who had spent 6 years choosing easier, who had stood by a wall with a cup of punch and watched and said nothing, finally spoke. He didn't speak to me. He spoke to his wife, and his voice was so steady and so final that I felt the room shift around it the way a room shifts when someone says the true thing out loud. She worked 60-hour weeks for 10 years to save that money, he said. She did it thinking about our daughter. She was dying, and she was thinking about our daughter. And you read those papers in a back bedroom and decided it was easier to make them disappear than to let them exist, the way she meant them to. And I am asking you to tell me right now, honestly, not for anyone else, just for me, that that is not what happened. Tell me I'm wrong. Courtney looked at her husband for a long moment. I watched her find the angle and I watched her lose it. I watched her understand that the angle was gone. She didn't say anything. Donovan nodded once, slowly. The nod of a man receiving information. He already knew and had been hoping was wrong. Then I did the last thing. The thing Margaret had asked me to do. I took the letter from the envelope. 2 pages handwritten. Margaret's particular slanted cursive that I would know anywhere. In the purple pen she always used, because she said life was too short, for blue or black. Margaret wrote this 7 days before she died, I said. She gave it to me with specific instructions. She wanted it read aloud to Lily's family on a significant occasion, so that Lily would grow up knowing, in her aunt's own words, that she was loved before she existed. I don't think Margaret knew it would be a day like this. But here we are. My hands shook, not from age. And I let them shake because some things deserve to be held with shaking hands. I read, "If you're hearing this," Margaret had written, "then Lily is here and I'm not," which is the arrangement I would change if I had any say in it, but apparently I don't. So let's work with what we have. I want you to know, Lily, that I knew about you before you were born. Before you had a name. Before you were anything but a plan your dad and mom were making. And I already loved you completely. That's not a thing people usually say. They wait until they can see you, hold you, count your fingers. I didn't get that. I had to love you sight unseen, on faith. The way you love a place you've only read about. I loved the idea of you and the hope of you and the person you were going to be. And I started saving for you the way I saved for everything in my life. One careful dollar at a time with the long game in mind. The money in this trust is not a gift exactly. It's more like a message. It says you were thought about before you arrived. It says someone planned for you, believed in your future, believed you deserved a head start no one could take away. My grandfather left me $200 when he died and I was 12 years old, and what I remember is not the money but the feeling. The specific feeling of learning that someone had thought about me in their most serious moments. I want you to have that feeling. Use the money on something that lasts, but keep the feeling forever. I have one piece of advice for you. Lily, from an aunt who never got to embarrass you at family dinners or give you bad advice about boys or tell you the same story. Too many times. Which is genuinely my greatest regret about this whole situation. Here it is. Learn the difference between what something costs and what something is worth. They are not the same thing. They are almost never the same thing. The most valuable things in any room are usually the quietest. Learn to look for them. Your grandmother knows how to look. Learn it from her. I love you, baby girl. I loved you before I met you. I'll love you from wherever I end up, which I'm told is quite nice. All my heart, Aunt Margaret. I folded the letter. The room was completely silent. Ruth was weeping. Donovan had his face turned away and his shoulders were shaking. Little Lily, who understood none of it, had fallen asleep in her high chair with the dinner roll still in her fist. The way babies sleep, completely and without apology. Courtney was looking at the table. Her face had done something I had not seen it do before, had let go of its arrangement. The careful pleasantness and the managed expressions, and what was underneath was something much younger and much sadder. It was the face of a woman who had grown up watching things disappear and had just understood, fully and too late to undo it, that she had tried to make disappear the one thing in this family that had been built specifically to last. I did not feel triumph. I want to be honest about that. I felt the absence of my daughter so acutely in that moment that the room went slightly gray at the edges. Margaret should have been sitting at that table. She should have been the one to read her own letter someday, to Lily, directly, with that purple pen tucked behind her ear and that laugh that could fill a parking garage. She should have been there. She wasn't. So I was. And I had done what she asked. I folded my hands on the table and I spoke to the whole room. The trust is locked, I said. Lily gets every cent when she's 18, for her education and her start, the way Margaret intended. I have worked this week with Walter to make the structure as secure as it can be made. No one at this table can redirect it, dissolve it, or access it. Not Courtney, not Donovan, not me. It exists for one person, the child with the dinner roll. I paused. I did not do this to punish anyone. I did it because your sister built something for your daughter, Donovan, and she built it to last. And my job as the person she trusted is to make sure it does. A woman who reads trust documents in a back bedroom and calls them worthless in front of 40 people is not a woman you leave an unlocked inheritance near. That is not a character judgment. It is a trustee's obligation. Donovan nodded. He didn't speak. He reached across and put his hand on the letter and held it there for a moment. The way you touch something you want to know is real. Courtney, I said, and she looked up. I am not asking for an apology. You are not built for them right now, and I would rather wait for the real one than receive the performed one. What I am asking is that you understand, fully and completely, that the child at the end of this table has a grandmother who is not optional, and an aunt who left her something that will outlast every choice anyone in this room makes. That is not a threat. It is just the truth. And I think you have perhaps not spent enough of your life around people who tell it plainly. Sandra said nothing. This was a diplomatic victory of the first order. Let me tell you how things settled in the months after. Because I know you want to know. The trust is locked and growing. $73,000 sitting quietly in a structure Walter built like a bridge, over-engineered on purpose, meant to outlast any storm. When Lily is 18, she will receive it and she will learn what her aunt did for her, and I will make sure she understands every detail of where it came from and what it cost. Donovan changed. Grief and reckoning do what comfort cannot. He came to me alone about 3 weeks after the dinner and sat at my kitchen table and said the thing he needed to say out loud. I have been looking away from things for 6 years, he said. I knew something was wrong. I could always feel the edges of it. I just kept deciding it was easier not to look. He was quiet. Margaret would have told me to look. She always told me to look. With her gone, I let myself stop. I know, I said. I'm going to stop stopping. He meant it. I can see it in him now. The small, sustained courage of a man who has decided to stop choosing easier, to notice the things that need noticing, to speak the things that need speaking. He and Courtney are in counseling. He tells me it is hard and necessary, and that they are both learning things they did not know they needed to learn. He keeps Margaret's photo on his desk. He has told Lily, who is 1.5 and understands perhaps 12 words, that her aunt saved up for her for a long time. She'll understand it eventually. He wants it to be something she's always known. Courtney and I are careful with each other. She has not apologized. I believe she will someday, when she is ready, in her own words. And I am in no hurry. She asked me once quietly if I would be willing to tell her more about Margaret, the real Margaret, not the photograph version. I said yes. We have had 2 cups of coffee, and I have told her about the parking garage, laugh and the purple pens, and the way Margaret attacked a problem, like it had personally offended her. Courtney listened. She asked good questions. It is a start. Sandra and I are not close. We will never be close, but she has stopped performing in my presence, which is the closest thing to peace I require from her. Margaret's letter lives in my safe. I have made 2 copies, notarized, one with Walter and one with my sister Ruth. When Lily is old enough to read, I will let her read it. When she is old enough to understand it, I will make sure she does. And on her 18th birthday, if God gives me that day, I will sit across from my granddaughter and hand her the trust documents and tell her the whole story from the beginning, so she knows not just that she received a gift, but who built it and how and what it cost and what it means. Margaret said, learn the difference between what something costs and what something is worth. Lily is going to know that difference. I will spend whatever years I have left making sure of it. My hands are fine, actually. Thank you. Gerald's arthritis did not get me. I still type fast, and I can still read a document at 50 paces, and I intend to be an inconvenient grandmother for a good while yet. But I have started writing things down. The stories about Margaret. The terrible jokes she told. The way she cried happy tears about Lily from a hospital bed. The parking garage laugh. I am writing them the way Margaret saved money, one careful piece at a time, in a document I am building for Lily to read someday. So a little girl who grows up with a photograph and a story has the whole story, not just the outline. It is the most important thing I have made in my life. More important than any document I ever filed. More important than the trust. Even because the trust gives Lily money and the document I am writing gives her Margaret. And Margaret was worth far more than $73,000. She was worth the whole room. She was worth every room. If there is one thing I would hand you from all of this, it is this. The world will tell you that worth is a thing you can read off a statement. That the locked trust and the legal structure are what matter. Don't believe that it is the whole story. The envelope that got called worthless in front of 40 people contained the most valuable thing in that house. Not the documents. The letter. 2 pages of purple pen cursive from a woman who loved a baby she never met. Learn to look for the purple pen things. They are almost never where the money is. They are almost always the only thing that lasts. That is my story. 1 broken seal, 1 trust fund, and a love worth more than the whole locked structure that protects it. If it reminded you of someone who left you something you are still understanding, tell them tonight or tell the people still here. Drop a comment, hit subscribe, and I'll see you next time.